Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is James. I'm the candidate coach. Thanks very much for joining me today for our workshop, How to Give Great Answers to Interview Questions. If you joined us in our previous workshop, we talked about how you can prepare well and how you can stand out when you're in the interview room. But we didn't go into how to actually give great answers to interview questions because, as you'll learn throughout the workshop today, there's a fair amount of preparation that's required in understanding how to give a great answer to an interview question. Now, by the time you sit down at an interview, and maybe in this day and age, not maybe, but quite often it's over video, you've put in a huge amount of work. You have put a lot of work in. If you go back to the start of the journey, you've started looking for work. You've spent a lot of time on the job boards. You've hopefully been tailoring each resume and each cover letter that you've been sending in. And you've likely done that a large number of times. You've probably had a number of phone interviews. You might have had to complete some assessments. You've then been invited in for the interview. You've got ready for the interview. And now you are sitting down at interview and you are preparing to be asked some interview questions. Now, a lot of the time up until this particular point, you've done a lot of work. You've spent hours on that resume, maybe days, maybe your resume's evolved over the years. You spent a lot of time working on it. Likewise with your cover letter. Likewise with all those other things you've prepared before the interview, like your clothing and where you're going to park and, reminding yourself that you need to smile and have a firm handshake. So when it comes, though, to actually opening your mouth and starting to speak, a lot of candidates kind of don't know how to give great answers, or they've done so much preparation that they've either forgotten to prepare great answers, or you just simply don't know how to. You just simply don't know how to give great answers. Now, it's very likely you've been in a job interview before, but also you might be preparing to go for roles for the very first time. So today, in our workshop together, we are going to hopefully give you the opportunity to learn how to give great answers to interview questions. But before we begin, just a little bit of workshop housekeeping. We are live today, so if I do drop out for any reason, please stay on the line and just wait for me to rejoin. Ask lots of questions. Use the comments box. I can already see some questions that are coming through at the moment. For an interview question, someone's written, what is the difference between good and great customer service for a tech support role? That's a great question. I'll come back and answer that one towards the end of the session. But continue to ask questions in the comments box wherever you're watching. Take lots of notes. And a replay of today's workshop will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to hear something again today, if you want to go through something again, you can watch it on our YouTube channel. Just simply search for The Candidate Coach. A little bit about me. Who am I as your presenter? Well, as I said before, my name's James Whitcomb. I'm a director at a recruitment agency called Smart Recruitment, and I've been at Smart since 2005. So I've spent 16 and a half years in recruitment. Now, over that time, I've conducted approximately, but this is probably an underestimation if I'm honest, over 3,000 interviews and over 600 group assessments. So I've sat there with over 3,000 candidates, and when you go into group assessments, it's probably a similar number again. And I've heard some wonderful answers. I've heard some wonderful answers to interview questions. I've heard some absolutely shocking answers to interview questions as well. But one thing that is very clear to me is that a well-organized candidate who has thought through and pre-prepared answers and has examples ready always stands out in an interview. I've placed over 1,000 people into jobs, and I launched the Candidate Coach, the platform that we're meeting on now, in December 2019. Now, today, if I do look at times like I'm looking over here, that's because that's where my presentation screen is, and so I can keep up with my slides. So I apologize if I'm not always looking down the barrel of my camera to you. Now, our previous workshop to this, some of you attended it, some of you have never heard of it, but I want to share with you our previous workshop, which was how to prepare and perform well at interview. If you'd like to watch the replay, take a screenshot of that now. It's on our YouTube channel. I've shrunk the YouTube link down to a bit.ly link. So it's bit.ly/interview tips 2020-22. and I think it is case sensitive. So that workshop, it is important to really watch it probably before this workshop. You are still going to get a lot out of today's workshop, but if you didn't see this workshop, I'd really encourage you to take the time and go and do it, because we talk about all the things that you need to do well in the lead up to being asked these interview questions. Alrighty, I've got a question for you. Type this in wherever you're watching today, whether you're watching on one of our partner sites or on our LinkedIn, our Facebook, our Twitter page. Type in for me here. What do you think is the most common interview question in the world? What actually is it? There are hundreds of thousands of different interview questions, but there is one particular question. There is one particular question that is really common. It is the most common. I start every single one of my interviews with this. There's a hint. I start every single one of my interviews with this question, whether it's a phone interview, whether it's a face-to-face interview, whether it's a computer interview, and somebody's got it right in the chat already. The most common interview question in the world is, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Now, it sounds like a really friendly question, doesn't it? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Hey, this should be easy, but don't drop your guard here. While it is a very friendly and it isn't, what sounds like an easy question, the moment you start answering this question, the recruiter begins to assess you. The recruiter begins to assess you and says, okay, I'm hearing this person speak for the first time. I'm hearing them communicate with me for the first time. They're getting a sense of your tone, of your voice, of your mood, of your attitude, of your enthusiasm. They're getting a sense of your level of preparedness for this situation as well. So, as I said, when I phone someone, I say, hey, thanks for applying for the job. Have you got 10 minutes for a chat? They normally say yes. I say, well, just to begin, tell me a little bit about yourself. And so if we can give a really good answer to this question, we are creating a great first impression. And if we create a great first impression, if we're up here, it is much easier to stay up here as the interview progresses. But if our answer to tell me a bit about yourself is pretty average, then we start down here and it's much harder to get back up there. So I want you to do the following for me. I want you to grab a pen and paper. Wherever you are watching this today, grab a pen and paper or get out a notepad on your device or open up another screen, because I want you to write down the following. I want you to write down, first of all, one. So write down what's on the screen there. Don't actually answer these, or you can write your name. I'm sure that won't be too much of a challenge. 1, name. 2, overview of your work history. Write down overview of your work history. 3, your top 3 skills. So again, don't write your skills here. Just write what you're seeing on the screen. And 4, the type of work you are looking for. Now, feel free again to type your answer in here. Who knows what I'm actually asking you to do here? Who knows what's going to happen when we answer these questions? Are you aware of what I'm asking you to do here? Because what we're going to do is we're going to create something here. We're going to create something that is going to be extremely useful for you if you are looking for work. We are going to create an elevator pitch. So an elevator pitch is a brief but persuasive speech. After today, I'd really encourage you to go away and Google elevator pitch. You will learn that there's lots of different types of elevator pitches. But an elevator pitch is extremely handy when looking for work. Why? Because the most common interview question in the world is tell me a little bit about yourself. A great answer to this question is your elevator pitch. So let's walk through it. So again, we've got to go with our name. So that's straightforward. You should all know your name. We're going to talk about an overview of our work history. Now, it's important to remember here that we don't want our elevator pitch to be too long. It's called an elevator pitch because it should take the time that you ride in an elevator with someone to be able to deliver it. So let's imagine that situation. Let's imagine you've got an interview tomorrow on the 35th floor of a building in the city. When you get to the building and you walk in and you press the button, the elevator doors open, you walk in and you press 35. But before the elevator doors close, somebody walks in behind you and guess what? It's the person that you're actually going to meet on the 35th floor. They introduce themselves and they say to you, hey, while we're going up in the elevator, why don't you tell me a bit about yourself? So you've kind of got that 30 to 60 or 90 seconds to tell them a little bit about yourself. But what you're actually really wanting to do here is to impress them. So you want to tell them a bit about yourself and you also want to impress them. So with the overview of our work history, it's got to be an overview. It's like 1 or 2 sentences. And your overview of your work history might highlight factors depending on what job you're going for. We then have our top 3 skills. Now, this is really important. With your top 3 skills, you need to choose tangible skills. You need to choose hard skills here. What tends to happen is a lot of people say, oh, I'm a hard worker, I'm a team player, and I'm a good communicator. Now, that all sounds lovely. That all sounds well and good. And maybe you are those 3 things. But guess what? Anybody can say that. And guess what? I really can't measure them. And guess what? They kind of don't mean a lot. So with your top 3 skills, at least 2 of them, I want to be hard skills. I want them to be technical skills. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say, for example, if you're going for an accounting job, I would list one of your skills as being up to date with the latest MYOB accounting software. That is a very specific technical skill to your job. If you are going for a sales role, you might say one of my sales skills is I'd never miss a target, and last year I exceeded my target by 20%. So list something that's a skill or an achievement, but put some tangibility around it. One of those things can be a soft skill, like being a good listener, being a good public speaker, but 2 of them need to be hard skills. And what type of work are you looking for? So here we can be quite specific, can't we? We can say, well, at the moment, I'm looking for an assistant accounting role with a Big 4 bank. Be quite specific here. So take a screenshot of that because we're about to move on. And I'm going to show you one that I've prepared earlier. So this would be my elevator pitch. So how would I answer the questions? Hi, my name's James Whitcomb. For 15 years, I've worked in recruitment, beginning as a recruitment consultant before progressing onto management and then onto being a director, my current position. My top skills would include interviewing candidates in a way that uncovers their true motivation, public speaking and presenting, as well as coaching and training candidates to ensure they are giving themselves the best chance of landing a job. I'm currently looking for a new role where I can focus more of my time on training and assisting candidates as opposed to being a recruiter. So that would be my elevator pitch if I was looking for work. Now, hopefully, what you've noticed there is that you feel like you might know quite a lot about me. You know, I went through that in about 45 seconds, but I've told you quite a bit about my background, my skills, and what I'm looking for. Don't be intimidated by this elevator pitch of mine. Don't be intimidated by it. As it says in my elevator pitch, I've been working in recruitment for 15 years, so I should be able to give, and I can give, a good elevator pitch. So my job for you is I want you to go away and create your elevator pitch. I've given you the outline. Go away and create your elevator pitch. I then want you to rewrite it several times until it's perfect. So write down your skills and expand on them. Write down the overview of your work history. And then maybe rewrite it a couple of times so you've got to a point where you're like, this is really good. I'm really, really happy with this. I actually don't think my elevator pitch can get any better than this. And then I want you to print it out. I want you to stick a copy on your fridge at home. I want you to have a copy on the kitchen bench. I want you to have a copy in your handbag. I want you to have saved a copy in your phone. The reason being is if a recruiter calls you and says, hey, I'm calling about the job, tell me a bit about yourself, you're going to go, oh, and you think, that's my elevator pitch. What is it? But if it's just in front of you on the table or it's on the fridge or you can look at it on your phone, it will come back to you. Your brain freeze will hopefully not be too debilitating. And finally, we want to use it. We are creating an elevator pitch here because we want to use it. Now, importantly, you might be going at the moment for 2 different types of jobs. You might be saying, hey, I'm looking for retail work. But I'm also really happy to work in office administration. Now, a bit like your resume and your cover letter, your elevator pitch should be a little bit different. Should be a little bit different for, well, not a little bit different, but quite different for each job. Because if you're going for a customer service role, you want to talk about your skills for customer service, not your administration skills, and vice versa. Alrighty, so let's get stuck into some more content. So how to stand out at interview. There's one rule, and if you're in my workshop yesterday, you would have learnt this. There is one rule. Preparation is key. Preparation is key, particularly when it comes to giving really great answers. You can't give a great answer if you haven't practiced it before, or if you don't know how to create a great answer. And a candidate who answers questions confidently gives the interviewer a great sense that they are a top performer. So have a think about it. If somebody answers questions confidently, if they're looking you in the eye, if they're giving good detail and they seem organized and confident, makes you feel like they can do the job well. Whereas if someone's not too sure and, they're looking at their fingers, they're mumbling a bit, they're looking around and, that's a really good question. Look, I can really give good customer service. No. Now, that second candidate might be better at the job, but if they don't give good answers, they're going to give the impression that they're not good at the job. Alrighty, we've got two types of interview questions. There are two main types of interview questions, and we're going to look at how we can give good answers today to both of them. The first one is behavioral questions, and the second one is technical questions. Now, what I'm going to tell you today is pretty straightforward. It is pretty straightforward in terms of these two types of questions. However, guess what? Most people don't spend the time looking into how to answer these questions. So there's an opportunity here for you to really stand out by studying them. Let's begin by looking at behavioral questions. What actually are they? You will hear behavioral questions or the phrase behavioral questions mentioned a lot. So in behavioral questions, we focus on how you've handled various situations in the workplace. And that is supposed to reveal your character traits, abilities, and skills. So typical behavioral questions will be kind of like, tell me about a time. A lot of them will be, tell me about a time you worked in a team that had a great outcome. Or tell me about a time you worked in a team that didn't have a great outcome. Tell me about a time you gave great customer service. Tell me about a time you had to deal with a really difficult customer. You'll get a lot of those types of questions. They're very typical behavioral questions. And so what we're looking to hear in those questions is we want to hear, how did you handle that situation? And what does that reveal about your character and your suitability for the job? All right, so how do we answer behavioral questions? Well, we use what is called the STAR technique. And so I'm going to be referencing an article from the Indeed website, and you can find the link on the bottom of the screen there, on how we can apply the STAR technique. Now, if you're using the STAR technique for the first time, the great thing is it's quite simple. We're going to go through it now. It might not necessarily sound simple the first time you go through it, but it is just 4 letters that you need to remember in that order to frame a really good answer to a behavioral question. So, the STAR technique, what does it stand for? S stands for situation. This is where we describe the situation and what took place. T is the task, where we're going to explain what the task was and what the goal was. A is the action. So this is actually, what did you do? What were the steps that you took? And R is the result. So it's going to be the conclusion. It's going to be the outcome. So we're going to go through this process, and we repeat this process for each behavioral question. We repeat this process for each behavioral question that we go through. Okay, let's look at it in a little bit more detail. So S, we start off with situation. We want to set the scene here for the story. So one really good way of imagining answering these questions is actually to think of it like a story. There's a lot of information out there now, particularly in business, around the power of storytelling. So think of your answers as being a story. And when you tell a story, you give details. So we give details by starting off by setting the scene and giving the context and the background of the situation. If you're asked about teamwork, your response should include the project details, who you were collaborating with, when you undertook the project, your location at the time. So one of the key things here is we are asking for a lot of detail. We want to know who, what, why, when. Where did it happen? So what was the location? What was the year? What was the time? Who else was involved? What were the details? We need to go into details here. The biggest mistake that candidates make when answering interview questions is they do not provide enough details. They do not provide enough details. Now, there's a number of reasons why you might not provide enough details. First of all, you might be nervous. You tend to speak quickly, you get asked a question, you try to answer it as quickly as you can. The second reason is we think, oh, look, they've asked that question, but they don't want to know long answers. They don't want to know the details. Where the opposite is true. We want to know details. It is in your best interest to give us details to these questions. It helps us to understand the circumstance, and it will hopefully help to show exactly what you've done. So set the scene, go into detail. That's our S. All right, let's look at our T. T is standing for task. T is standing for task. So we describe your exact role in the situation. Make sure the hiring manager knows what you were specifically assigned to do rather than what everyone else did. So this is really important again, because a lot of the time a behavioral-based question will ask you about a time you worked in a team. So the question might be, tell me about a time when you worked in a team that didn't achieve the outcome you were hoping for. Let me ask you straight away, if I ask you that question now, could you answer it? Because if not, you probably need to go away and work out what your answer is going to be. And then you need to describe your exact role. So, yep, we were a team of 5. My role was this. So we want to know within the team, what was the team's goal, but also what were your individual responsibilities? What were you tasked with doing? And then A stands for action. And as it says here, this is probably the most important part of the story. So S and T, we're setting the scene. What's the situation? What's the task? A is actually, what did you do? So here you explain how you handled the situation or conquered the problem. Say whether you did it alone or together as a team. What you're trying to communicate here is your assessment of the situation and your response to the problem, as well as how you got the team involved. And again, look at this last line. Share as many details as is possible so the interviewer can follow you. And as you do so, avoid acronyms and company-specific jargon. So, details. We need to know the details, but we also want to know in detail, what steps did you take? What did you need to do? This is where you need to spend the most amount of time in terms of your answer, talking through what you did. And then we finish off with R. We finish off with the result. So we close off the story by stating the positive outcome of your actions and what the lessons you learned were. If possible, quantify the results of your actions. Examples may include a 10% increase in sales, getting repeat business, or saving your team 5 hours of work in a week. Now, the result here might not always be good. In some behavioral-based questions, we specifically want a bad result because we want to see what your actions were that you took. But we need to hear about the result. Close it out. So let's look at an example. Describe a time when you handled a difficult situation at work. How did you react? So I'm going to pause there for a moment. I just want you to have a think. Have a think. If you are asked this question at an interview today, describe a time when you handled a difficult situation at work. How did you react? How confident would you be on your answer? How confident would you be on your answer? Have you got an answer? Can you use the STAR technique? So can you describe the situation, the task, your actions, and what the results are? We're going to show you an answer now, and this question asked to somebody going for a nursing role. So the nurse answered, in my last job as a night nurse, one of my colleagues quit after securing a job with a top private hospital. Though I was managing a ward full of patients, I was assigned to this one patient who didn't want to be admitted. He wanted to bolt out of his room. I made myself available to the patient, discussed with them the reason he was being admitted, and assured him he would receive 24/7 attention and good care. The patient finally calmed down and agreed to spend the next 3 days under observation. He was discharged on the 3rd day, and the wife personally thanked me for handling someone she knew to be extremely stubborn and difficult. So this is a wonderful answer. Let's look a bit more closely though when we break it down. In the red here, we've got the S. So we describe the situation. The situation was that in my last job as a night nurse, one of my colleagues quit after securing a job with a top private hospital. We then go on to T. What is the task? I was assigned this one patient who didn't want to be admitted. So this person has been very clear with us on what their task was. Now, importantly, what actions did they take? And in the green, they made themselves available to the patient, discussed with them the reason he was being admitted, and assured him he would receive 24/7 attention and good care. So that is the action. And then we finish off with the results in the purple. The result is that the patient was discharged on the third day, and his wife personally thanked me for handling someone she knew to be extremely stubborn and difficult. So that's a really good way of applying the STAR technique to behavioral-based interview questions. So what I would really encourage you to do is to go away and to Google behavioral-based interview questions, or to find them on your candidate coaching platform. Some behavioral-based questions will be specific to each industry, but something like the one we just said there, describe a time when you've handled a difficult situation at work, that could apply to any job. That could apply to any job. So if you have practiced your answer before and you've got your example and your situation in your mind, you are going to be able to tell that story far better the second and third time around. If you practiced it at home, when you deliver it at an interview, I guarantee you'll give that answer in a better way than if you are coming up with it on the spot for the first time. All right, let's look at that second type of question. So we've looked at behavioral-based questions. Let's look at technical interview questions. So what are technical interview questions? Well, they're going to focus on the skill, the qualification, and experience required to do the job. So we're not looking at behaviors here. We're looking at skill. We're looking at qualification. It's going to be very technical, and these questions will be very specific to the job. So somebody's asked a question: do interviewers like being told in story form? The answers so far seem to be like that. Yes. Your answer to behavioral-based question is telling a story. It is telling a story, and that's why I encourage you to go into detail. All right. Back to technical interview questions. So what's an example? Well, an example of a technical interview question could be, tell me about the accounting software packages you are most familiar with. So that would obviously be for an accounting job. That's a technical question. Or if you're going for a sales role, you might be asked, which sales methodology do you find is most effective? So how do we answer these questions? Well, first of all, this is really important. You actually need to focus on answering the question. With technical questions, you have a fairly narrow band to answer the question. With behavioral-based questions, you can choose the example. You can choose the situation that you want to describe. With technical interview questions, it's quite specific. If it's tell me about accounting software that you're proficient in, you've just got to focus on answering that question. Don't waft off here. Number 2, provide details. Hopefully I'm getting this through to you today, that you need to go into details. On the whole, candidates in interview do not provide enough details. You need to provide details. You need to go into details, and you can do so by actually applying the STAR technique if you like, or the who, what, where, when, and why. So provide the details using this particular technique. Give even further detail. So I'm actually asking you now to provide more, or ask if it's okay. So ask if it's okay. If you're providing detail, you can simply pause for a moment and say to the interviewer, am I going into too much detail here? Or would you like me to go into further detail? The more detail that you can show, the better. It is great, particularly if the interviewer says, yes, please go on. You are really impressing with the level of detail that you can go into. And then try to relate your answer to the job or company that you are interviewing with. This is a really big one. And I can't really give you examples because it's going to be different for every job. But if you can relate your answer to that job that you're applying for, to that company, then that is going to really help. All right, we're going to change tack for a moment, because dealing with nerves and anxiety at interview can be really challenging. So you might have the best answers in the world prepared and practiced. But if you are somebody that struggles with nerves, if you are somebody that struggles with anxiety, it can really hurt you. So we're going to share a small video with you now on how you can deal with overcoming nerves and anxiety at job interview. Thanks for joining us at The Candidate Coach, Dr. Barker. Tell us a bit about your background and the type of work you do.
I am Dr. Sarah Barker. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've worked in workplace mental health with Black Dog Institute for the past 7 years.
Dr. Barker, why is it common to feel nerves when going for a job interview?
We commonly feel nervous, and I would say most people feel nervous when going for a job interview because we feel a lot depends on it and that we're going to be evaluated as well. So nerves are a very, very common response. It's really important to remember that the person who's doing the recruiting also feels nervous as well, because they want to get the right person, and they're also aware that they're expecting people to come in feeling nervous as well. They know that that's a common human experience.
What can we do before the interview to help best prepare so that we're not overcome by feelings of nerves and anxiety?
To best prepare ourselves to avoid some of those feelings of anxiety and nerves before an interview, firstly is to accept, I think, that they're going to be there. And actually, a few nerves are actually helpful. They help us give our best performance, give our best answers, think the best on the spot. So accepting that there's going to be a level of nerves is okay. But I think also probably an hour beforehand or the morning before the interview, really practicing some breathing strategies, whichever is your favourite breathing strategy, to calm those nerves down, calm the system down, calm the breath down, and allow your body to relax as much as it can into the interview. I also think preparing answers and having a practice in front of the mirror of some likely answers that are going to be, or likely responses to questions that are going to be asked, can be very, very reassuring, because often the questions we predict are there. And even on the internet, there are usually lots of questions for any job that are typical questions that you can then prepare a brief response reflecting on your experience beforehand. So it's not such a test in the moment then, because you've got some preparation behind you. The other thing I think too is reminding yourself, I've got this far and this is a good thing. And they're interested in getting to know me. I'm also interested in getting to know them, and concentrate on the relationship too and enjoy the relationship as much as you can. They're usually going to try and put you at ease so that they can see how you respond as well.
And what can we do during the interview if we feel a bout of nerves or anxiety coming on?
It's very common for us to suddenly feel overwhelmed in the moment in an interview. If that happens, take some deep breaths. It's okay to buy some time. It's okay. And also, when we take deep breaths in an interview, it's only usually us that notice. Okay, so taking some deep breaths can really be helpful. And even saying to the interviewer, could I just take a moment here just to pause and gather my thoughts, and then just breathe. Okay, and then when you're ready, come back and say, I'm ready to continue on. And that's a fine way to manage nerves during an interview. One tip that I think is a really useful one is to have a practice of your responses to the likely questions in front of the mirror. Something you might notice is that the questions you're feeling more confident about, you'll smile more, you'll be more relaxed, you'll, strut your stuff a little bit as you respond. You'll notice too, the questions you feel less confident about, you might stop smiling or your face might change. Those questions are the ones you need to practice a little bit more at, and remind yourself of your confidence with that, or prepare your answer so that you do feel more confident, because your face will actually tell you in the mirror, and that can be good preparation for the actual interview of knowing where to focus on in feeling more strong in your responses. In summary, nerves and anxiety for interviews can be partially managed and avoided by preparing beforehand, using our breathing exercises and techniques to reduce stress so we're going in feeling calmer, and also during the interview by practicing those same skills. often when we're nervous, we stop breathing or we breathe very shallowly. So if we start noticing ourselves doing that, really being conscious of our breath and paying attention to it and allowing that to carry us through.
Thanks for watching today, and we hope this has helped you best prepare for your next job interview. Good luck. Alrighty, some great tips there on how to prepare to not have your nerves and anxiety overcome. So, what have we learned so far today? Well, hopefully, preparation is key in your mind. If you don't prepare for the interview, then you're not going to do very well. But the great thing is, everybody can prepare. Everybody's on the same playing field, on an even playing field when it comes to preparing for interview, in particular when it comes to preparing to give great answers. You can do the preparation. There is no excuse for not giving great answers to interview questions because you can go and practice them and prepare them yourself. Now, if you're still wanting some more assistance, I'd really encourage you to jump on our candidate coaching platform where we've got 2 episodes here. Episode 8, interview preparation, getting the basics right, and episode 9, taking your interview from good to great. In each of these episodes, you're going to hear from 6 or 7 different recruiters who are going to share with you their thoughts on what you need to do to impress at interview. And a reminder of all the other resources that are available to you on your candidate coaching platform. We have video coaching episodes, resume and cover letter templates, interview questions, online tests so you can practice your skills. We have checklists that you can download to make sure that you're best prepared and you haven't missed anything. We have articles for you to read. We have specific advice for executive job seekers. We have mental health support, more information on our future live workshops, and all of this is available to you for free. So just a word on our upcoming workshops. We run 2 workshops every single week. Please do check back wherever you're watching this workshop to find out when your next workshop is. Now, if I could ask one thing from you, it would be to please take 2 minutes to complete our survey. We have a 2-minute survey, where we ask you what your thoughts were on today's workshop. We would like to know what benefit you got out of it. And importantly, in that survey, which is only 5 or 6 questions, we actually ask you, what else would you like us to provide workshops on? So please do take 2 minutes before you log off today. Write that link in surveymonkey.com/r/candidate coach and complete the survey. Also really encourage you to follow our LinkedIn page to keep up to date with all of our events. Feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn and connect as well. But before we go, we'll finish today with a really important video with Dr. Sarah Barker again. And in this video, she's going to talk about what you can do to look after your mental health when looking for work. Because a lot of people who have no mental health problems at all can actually face mental health challenges when they are looking for work. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope to see you in our next workshop. This workshop will conclude after this video.
If you're not feeling terrific at the moment and you feel like your mental well-being has taken a little bit of a dip, please remember this is not going to last forever. There's lots you can do to manage your mental health and get back on top of it. I am Dr. Sarah Barker. I'm a clinical psychologist. I've worked in workplace mental health with Black Dog Institute for the past 7 years. Lot of adults and young people, mainly with anxiety, depression, trauma as well, a range of issues, and many who are looking for work and undergoing that process of trying to find employment. Looking for
work causes mental strain because our identity is tied up with our work. Work gives us meaning, it gives us purpose, it gives us company and connection. So it's stressful for lots of reasons looking for work, and it can take a toll on our mental health. It's really important for us to be aware of the signs that our well-being and our mental health might be dropping. Probably the biggest sign is changes in behaviour. So that might be changes in the way we're thinking or talking to ourselves. We might be saying things like, who would employ me? I'll never get a job. We might be really down on ourselves and really hard and critical on ourselves when normally we're not so hard and critical. We might also, in our relationships, change our behaviour. We might be more snappy or more irritable with people that we love, that normally we might be a little bit irritable sometimes, but not irritable in that way. Losing interest in things that usually sparked us and ignited us and gave us joy. So perhaps usually we like walking the dog and suddenly we start thinking, I can't be bothered walking the dog today. That sort of thing, those changes in behaviour are really significant because they tell us that something's different, and if we're noticing, I suppose, more than one of those and it's affecting the way we feel, and this is over a period of say 2 weeks or longer, then it's a really good idea to have a chat to a GP that you trust, and find out what might be going on, have a discussion and see if there's any physical reasons for that, or if perhaps your mental health and wellbeing might be able to do with a little bit of extra support, and then the GP can refer you on to see a psychologist, a counsellor, whoever is most appropriate for you. There are so many great things you can do to look after your mental health when you're looking for work, and it's really important that you do. My very top tip would be really talking kindly to yourself and being compassionate with yourself. I think when we're looking for work, we can have a lot more questions like, will I ever get a job? Will I ever be employed? It can feel like this could go on forever. So being kind to ourselves and saying things like, it will work out. There will be a day, my efforts will be rewarded. It will just take time. I just need to keep trying. Reminding yourself of your strengths. And that might even be tapping into people you love and asking them what your strengths are, because sometimes it's harder to find them when our mood's a bit low and we're feeling more worried. We can be harder on ourselves. I think that routine is really, really important to our well-being. When we're looking for work, we mightn't have such a regular routine because there mightn't be a 9 to 5 start and finish time for a job, or there isn't. So instead, thinking about looking for work as a job in itself can be helpful. Having a start time and a finish time can be really helpful, and some set tasks that you hope to achieve that day. Purpose is really important too. So purpose might come through routine, but it can also come through other things. Meaning's really important, and our work gives us meaning. So when we're looking for work, meaning mightn't feel like it's there as much. Part of what we can do is infuse those tasks with meaning. So I am doing these things today, I'm looking for work, and that is meaningful in itself because there's an end goal to this. It will be something that's good for me and good for the people that I love as well. Some excellent resources for looking after well-being when looking for work are the Headgear app. The Headgear app is free, it's evidence-based, it's developed by Black Dog Institute, and it is fun to use. It uses mindfulness, so a technique to really help us relax and reduce physiological arousal, which can often occur when we're feeling anxious. It's got a 30-day challenge, which is just short, bite-sized little challenges to extend your well-being and grow your well-being, and that can be really extra important when we're looking for work. There are also some really terrific resources available through the Black Dog Institute. One of them is a beautiful self-care plan that encourages you to think about your top coping tips, the things that personally work best for you, that are positive coping strategies. Another really good resource is through Beyond Blue, and they've got some excellent resources to look after mental health while looking for work, and also when people are recently out of work as well. probably time to seek professional assistance when you notice your mood is lower and you're feeling more down than usual, when you're worrying more and perhaps worrying excessively about things that you wouldn't normally worry about, and perhaps in your relationships too, when you're more tense with people and perhaps more snappy or irritable. All of these are signs that perhaps our mood is not in the greatest space and our well-being is not in the greatest space, and that it can be a great idea then to chat to your GP, who can then refer you to an appropriate person to help you strengthen your well-being. It's very common for people to have a dip, but please know that that's not going to last forever, and that there's lots you can do through looking after yourself, but also through getting access to professional support that can really give you a boost again and get you back feeling good as you're looking for work.